Hi there everybody, Flash Razran here with a review of Ambition and Minuet in Power. There will be a link somewhere in the description or somewhere in the video to the playthrough we finished on the channel. I finished on the channel a week ago, so if you want to watch through that and see me fight my way through Revolutionary France, well, not fight my way through Revolutionary France, but anyway, you got that here. So what is Ambition and Minuet in Power? If you're not familiar with it, what is it? Let me read you the Steam page to start with. It's 18th century Paris, a city of love, lies and revolution. You are a woman of fashion trying to survive the political turmoil. Date a cast of unforgettable characters, amass the wealth and respect you deserve, engage in gossip that you can alter the course of history or lead you to the guillotine. So that's the game. Where it's basically you are set in 1879 France on the verge of the French Revolution. What's the aim? To survive the revolution, and where you can influence the revolution through a variety of different ways. So the game opens up with you're playing the part of Yvette Deco. I am, as a winner, I will try my very best not to give any spoilers away. But you open the opening. If you upload the episode on my prologue of my playthrough, you'll see the prologue, which is pretty much episode 1. You're Yvette Deco. Again, I apologise for butchering pronunciations as well. We'll try this. I'll get it right. Stick with me. You are Yvette Deco. Or Ducot, on the way from your little village and somewhere in France, on the way to marry the Baron Armand. Because you're his Francis. As you arrive in Paris, you go to where you're meant to be meeting him. No sign of him at all. When you ask people where he is, or do they know him, well, everybody runs away from him. So instantly you can't find him, and nobody wants to tell you where he is. So you then move on to his house, where you meet the wonderful Camille. And this is where you first get the idea and of the style of the game, because there's a conversation with Camille, who as you arrive at your house, which is very, very funny, and it sets the tone for the game. This is a game that has the artwork is hand drawn. The artwork is hand drawn and it's beautiful, and the dialogue is very, very funny. There's a sense of humour to the dialogue that just makes you laugh out loud. we'll come on to more of that later. But that's your prologue. So you come in, so you get through the prologue, and you're essentially in a house in Paris with no money, no fiance, and no clue. Essentially, that leads you into the gameplay. The best way to describe it is turn-based. But you wouldn't really look at it, it doesn't appear to be obviously turn-based, but it's a turn-based game. It's a turn-based game that it's important that as you're living your life as a vet, trying to survive, trying to do what you need to do, all around you, every so often as you go through the game, an event will pop up, and all of a sudden you'll get drawn into a dialogue, or not a dialogue, or a scene where it sets what's happening in the wider scale of Paris, so in the wider world. So as almost real world events of the French Revolution happen around you, you get an idea of the escalating or the escalating problems facing the various different people within France. So who are these people? There are 5 main protagonists in the story. There is the crown, the church, the military, the revolution, and the bourgeoisie. Quick French history lesson for you. There are 3, I will probably get this wrong, there are 3 estates within France. There's the church, the nobility, and the common people. The church and the nobility don't pay any taxes. The common people, which includes the bourgeoisie, pay all the taxes. So the root cause of the problems within France in 1789 was the fact that they were running out of money, because if people had the money, e.g. the church and who were massive landowners, and the nobility didn't pay any taxes, and the common people, which included the burgeoning bourgeoisie, did. Okay, so each of those 5, either the church, crown, the military, the bourgeoisie, revolution, they all represent different factions. And which brings you into the main game screen. The main game screen you will become familiar with is is the screen is your calendar. Within your calendar, you will see by day, because when you say turn, everything happens by day. So you'll in a calendar, and you'll see in your calendar, you will get invited to lots of parties. You go through an initial the first thing you will do, you get invited to a party. Something happens that will happen whatever you do. Can't avoid it because it's part of the story. Once that happens and you get home, which is again leaving the first party, which is part of the prologue, you have to make a choice how you get from the party back to your house, which introduces you to the first where you've got to make choices that matter. Again, without going into much detail, it's where you start meeting notable characters. Notable characters will appear throughout the game, and these are characters that represent the different protagonists within the bit different of the 5 main protagonists in the story, and you will start interacting with those notables, and then they will start affecting what happens to you throughout the game. But again, we'll come on to that as we get more into it. So anyway, so you've got past your initial prologue meeting. You'll have met somebody, because you will meet somebody. I met Father Sadotti, the route I chose to get out of the initial meeting. I met Father Sadotti, but you've got 2 or 3 other ways you can do it, and that is your first notable. So when you've done that, you're back in your house. What then happens is you'll come to the end of the day. You'll go right end of the day, and then you move on to the next calendar day. That next calendar, you might get a series of invites to events, i.e. you get invited to parties which are held by all the different protagonists within the story. When I say protagonists, I mean the 5 we talked about earlier, so I don't have to keep repeating what they are. So you'll accept that. You will accept that invitation to that party. And so say for example, the military invites you to a party. You go to that day in the calendar, and it goes, and you look at the calendar, it's going to go to the party. So you go to the party and then look at the screen. But then that's the first kind of choice it adds into it is that you don't just go to a party. You've got to kind of go. You've got to have the right clothes. You've got to have the right outfit to go to the right party. For example, the church like you to dress in one way. The military don't like to dress in a different way. So then you have to go to your wardrobe. You have to make sure you've got the right ball gown dress, the right outfit on, so that when you go to that party, they all like you. Okay. So that's where your calendar starts. Your calendar is your term. It's every day do one thing. Okay. So on the first time, so once you're going to do it, if you've not got a party, you won't have a party on the first day. You'll have a party invite, and you'll be recommended to go onto the Explore Paris map, which is then you're going to Explore Paris map. That takes you into a map of Paris. That map of Paris will then show you 4 different things. You'll see 4 different pop-ups, not pop-ups, 4 pins in a map which represent points of interest, current objectives, incidents, and shops. The points of interest are just interesting things. If you go and visit them, find out what they are, and then nothing might happen. You might find out some interesting gossip, which we'll come to in a minute. You might have a conversation with somebody, but they're just things that open up. They just open up events, open up areas you can return to. So the first 2 points of interest you'll get would be the newspaper La Trompette Le Puel. I never remember what it's called, and the wardrobe shop. Which is the first thing you will go to the wardrobe shop, and that will then become tagged as a shop on your map where you will go and buy it and sell your clothes. Because when you go to a party, you can't just buy one frock the military like and just wear that all the time, because the more you wear an outfit, the less impressive it comes. It starts like 100%, and every time you wear it, it gradually decreases down. So the more you wear it, the less effect it's got. And then the less effect it's got makes it harder for you, because every time you go to a party, on your main calendar screen, you've got credibility and you've got peril. The more people like you, the better credibility gets. The better credibility gets when you get into conversations that require essentially it would be a D&D dice roll. A credibility check. Say for example, you're trying to persuade somebody to tell you something, but that means that you need to make a small credibility check. So the better your credibility, the more chance you got to pass that credibility check, as I understand it. It's the same with peril as well. say, for example, you want to steal some money from somebody, or you're an empty room, you want to grab a person and get out, and you're doing a party, that requires you to take a peril check. And therefore, if you fail this check, you get high. If you fail a credibility check or peril, or if you fail the check, either credibility or peril, you get an increase or decrease of the two. At least that's what I think, because it never really kind of, when it says you're doing a credibility check, it's not really obvious. Are you checking against credibility you've already got, or is it just like a random dice roll as in D&D? That's really not very. It's not really very obvious, but it always helps better credibility you've got. Always again, but it doesn't really kind of. It doesn't really make it obvious, for me anyway. What's the benefit of having high credibility against having low credibility? And it's, again, when it comes to peril, if your peril maxes out, it says to you, bad things will happen, and then all of a sudden you can lose all favour with all the notables, even people you've not met, you lose all favour. But then it's not really obvious what benefit that favour is giving you. It's something that happens underneath the lid, so to speak. It's something that happens behind the scenes. So my assumption always was, because it doesn't really tell you, that if you've got favour with somebody, you're more likely to get positive things out of them. But for me, that's never really been very obvious. But it doesn't get in the way of the game. You just kind of go, well, I've lost some favour with somebody. Oh well. So anyway, so you watch the map and you just pick all these different events. So the current objectives is something that will drive the story forward. And instantly, it's just something. Again, it's just a random event. It could be you don't know what it could be. So you'll click on it, and it'll give you a kind of little bubble pop, a little picture will pop up, and it'll give you a little background of what you're going into. So you can think, well, actually, I might be going to, like, one of the first ones will be the peril of journalism, where you'll then go into this area, meet somebody, have a conversation. You might get nothing out of it, or you then might get some gossip on one of the factions in the game. That leads into gossip. Obviously, you've got no money. Your fiance's vanished off the face of the earth. But don't mention his name. People look at you as if you've got three heads. And it's a gossip. So, you end up working for a newspaper which I can remember what it's called. It's the Le Trompette de Peuple, P-E-U-P-L-E-S. Apologise for butchering it. What you essentially do, every time you get a piece of gossip, you go back to the newspaper owner and you sell it to him. But that comes with its own risk, because depending on where you got it from, it can be tracked back to you. So if for example, you get a warning, you've got some cheap crime gossip, and it gives you a 2-to-1 chance people will work out it was you, the gossip's come from you, all of a sudden you've got a huge amount of peril. When you max your peril, all of a sudden you lose lots of favour with lots of people, which means my assumption would be it would make it harder for you to get things out of those people when you have conversations with them. And so the crux of the game is then you are trying to get gossip, to pay the rent on the house, because actually, as it transpires, you don't own the house you're living in. Armand's renting it, so you've got to pay the rent every week. You've got to pay Camille her wages, and you've got to pay the owner of the house to live there, basically, to rent. And it kind of comes. And on a side note, it's one of the ways when the art style comes, because they only have these conversations, particularly with things like Camille. They've got 3 different general expressions on their faces, which are very, very exaggerated. You've got that I'm having a nice, happy conversation. You've got I'm really cheerful, which are really animated. I'm dead happy, and you've got really animated. I'm really sad. I'm really angry. And it's style's just beautiful. It does that. It's very obvious the direction of conversation is going because the animation changes. Anyway, so that's one way you go. You can explore Paris. You explore Paris. You find various different things to look at. One might just be you might visit in a park, and it might say this park is now on your Paris maps. Therefore, if you want to arrange a meeting with somebody, a liaison, you can now invite them to meet you at this particular area. Which again, that'll become relevant in a minute. So the other way that you can get gossip, and the other interaction you have is being invited to parties. You will be invited to a lot of parties. When I played, I accepted everything I was invited to. Just because, why the devil not? Because if you don't, you get credibility hits if you don't accept the party, don't accept the invitation. But then for me, I never really having little credibility. It never really hindered me in general at all. So I kind of never really thought, so well, actually, and also I wanted to go to the party because I wanted to see what would happen. Because you go to the party again. This is a turn based. If you go to the party, you get 2 turns. You'll get shown a picture of a room. If it's a church, it'll look like a church. If it's a cafe, it'll look like a cafe, etc., etc. And you'll get 2 turns, and you have 3 people in a room. Each one will have different things. You might get one that's a lost, May's lost a purse. Have a conversation, help find who it belongs to. Another one that might be, I don't know, a couple are having a conversation. It's obvious they're discussing something important. See, if I join this conversation, I might get some really nice gossip out of it. Another might be a business standing on his own, go and have a chat to him. So there's lots of different kind of stories to conversation to have, where you can gain like gossip, either a tiny bit, either like it's like cheap gossip, e.g. it's not really it's not that scandalous. Medium it's different levels of scandalous behind the gossip. So again, but with that comes the more scandalous gossip, the more credibility you could get, or the more credibility you could lose, and the more power you could get, the more power you could lose. So essentially, you get that gossip, and that is one thing I didn't really pay much attention to what the gossip actually was, which was probably an issue, which I kind of, because a lot of the gossip kind of repeated itself a little bit. So I know, again, I kind of like dismissed it as being important, which it kind of which maybe I should have done, because maybe I missed useful information within those gossips. It's something you should pay. I didn't, and I think I should have done. But you should pay attention to the gossip you're getting, what it says, because it might give an indication as to how things are going. And then you do too, when you have that gossip, you have that conversation. That conversation becomes, it's almost like it's a turn based. So you'll get a message board. The pop up will come with, the text will come up with like how the conversation flows. The person you'll speak to will say something, then you'll get a list of responses. With some might be need a check against credibility, some might be a check against peril, and one might be negative. I don't want this conversation. I'm just going to give a neutral response. And you have that conversation, and then the results of that conversation will come through as to the success of it. And then while we're talking about conversations, you also get ones where literally you sometimes in having a conversation, you'll get, particularly in Prologue, you'll get a choice, and then a little blue head pops up at the side of your choice going, this is going to have no effect on the game whatsoever, just pick your response. And you'll get 3 different levels of response. One's just kind of basic, one's quite it's just that it has no effect on your character, but the responses are very, very funny. So you can almost kind of go, actually, I'm just going to give a neutral response, a polite response. I'm just going to be really offensive to you because I feel like I can do. And there's little things like that kind of help you build the character up in your head as you play through the game. And it's just last little touch where this is going to have no effect on the game whatsoever. So knock yourself out, that type of response you want to get. And the responses are hilarious. Some of the things you can say to people are great, and it just helps you build up the character in mind. It helps you just immerse yourself more in the game, just because you can be really sarcastic to somebody if you want to be, because you would do in real life. Okay, so anyway, your next turn comes in, you do the same thing again. You go to your next turn, and you do the same thing. You go through different conversations, and again, you might get some of that, you might not. And then, but what you hopefully get out of it is gossip. And then once you've got your gossip, you can then go back to the newspaper and sell it to the newspaper guy. So you can do 2 things. You can sell it to him, and he'll put it in your newspaper like you would do in a tabloid newspaper now. Or you can use it to kind of sway the opinion against one or another faction, because it's at some point you've got to pick a side. You've got to either, I'm going to go crown, because you've got the 5 protagonists are split into 2 groups. You've got the 2 major protagonists, which is the Crown and the Revolution. Then you've got like that. You've got the church, military, and bourgeoisie. Now they all support different sides. So you then got to decide: am I going to support the revolution, or am I going to support the Crown? Because if you support the revolution, and when the revolution comes, and you're not on the right side, you could end up going to the guillotine. simply. So it's not just about going to parties, making a bit of money, having a bit of fun. You've actually got to make sure that you're picking a side so that you can make sure that you can actually be on the right side when it wins. And I can see when I get played through iPad, I can see the exact conversation or series of conversations and meetings I went to that directly affected the result of my game. Because it's important that while you're going to having these random conversations, picking up these random gossip, you sell it to newspaper, you're thinking about and you're checking. Because back in the calendar, when you go back to the calendar on your first screen, when you look at your calendar, there are several things you can look at. You can look at, you've got your wardrobe, you've got a calendar which is basically you can see what you're going every single day. You've got your wardrobe, you can see what clothes you own. You've got the estate, when you can see the state, when you can look at the state of the different protagonists, the politics essentially. When you can look at the state of the politics. So in your journal, you're going to get a state of the politics. When you can see what sides, how much power they've got, how much influence they've got. You get your list of your notables, e.g. who you've met, what's going on with them, and in some cases what your relationship is, which I'm going to in a minute, and what gossip you've got, what it is, and how much it's worth, and whether it's fresh, whether it's old. Because obviously the fresher it is, the more money, the more chance people will find out it's you. Okay, when we come on to notables, as it says right at the start, is data cast of all forgettable characters, and it's at the core of the game is meeting these notables and literally just seducing them essentially with it might have just been why I played it, but essentially you are seducing your way through a series of notable characters in a game to the end point of not getting guillotined essentially. So the two and they can go very, very, very different ways. Again, without giving away any spoilers, I had a lot of meetings with a Catholic priest, Father Sidotti, and we had a lot of liaisons. We had a meeting in his room that was interrupted by his bishop. Lots of conversation, and I did that pretty much over all 12 episodes of the game. And then I had another liaison with Elizabeth, the portrait artist of the Queen, and that was a completely different ball game, and it was absolutely fantastic. I was doing through this. The particular event I had it was obvious what was going to happen, or it's obvious what could happen if you did it the right way, and it was blindingly obvious that what could happen if you went the right way with it. And I had a great fun. I did it over the course. I think it was over the course of 2 episodes, and I had an absolute scream. It was great fun. No, if I do this will happen. So I'm going to see if I can do it just because it will be fun, and it's great. There's no, when you say seducing people, it's done all very much in the hand-drawn style. It's all very much kind of, it's assumed you'll know what it's assumed. Once you've actually got to the end of the road with it, it's assumed you know what's going to happen. There's no kind of nudity or lewdness in it. There's nothing like. It's all very much kind of, you know what's going to happen because you're grown up, so therefore you can work it out in your head. You know, it's all just it's all you can tell just by the writing. The writing style kind of is very clear as to what's happened without actually seeing what's happened, without getting too much detail. It's great fun. But then they were the only 2 notables I explored, because that's the way I played the game. So I know that there's at least 2 or 3 other notables that I didn't meet or only had one conversation with. I thought, well, where can I go with that one? And again, they all represent different factions. So it's kind of, so it allows you to kind of play the game in a lot of different ways. Other notables you've got Camilla. Camilla is your maid, and she's wonderful. I particularly love the character. I love the character from the prologue, the incident in the prologue that just made me laugh. And she's your maid, and I had missions where I had to save her from getting arrested by some guard because I didn't pay a bribe. And you kind of want to and you want to care about, but she doesn't do anything. She's kind of other than getting into trouble in a couple of missions, in a couple of incidents occasionally. But then she's just there. She's just your constant like person there. But she's a notable that doesn't do anything. That's where something comes in. You've got other notables. For example, I hired a bodyguard in one conversation, and it cost me 30 livres a week, and he didn't do anything. And I was sat feeling like, what's the purpose of this notable character other than costing me money? He's not actually doing anything. I don't know how to call this character into a particular mission. If I need a mission, I say it into. I don't know how to call this man into activity if I need to. And that's one issue you've got. The notables you can hire yourself don't seem for me to serve a purpose. They don't seem to there was no obvious way you could use them. There was one particular incident I hired a bodyguard, and someone burst into my house and he did absolutely nothing about it. I'm thinking, well, where are you and what am I paying you for? That's the one thing that I would question as to what the point of those notable characters you can hire. What was the purpose of them? Because for me, they didn't seem to serve a purpose. And I suppose it's the same with a favour. It was kind of, I can guess what it did, but it wasn't really, unless I completely missed it. It wasn't really obvious what it did. But anyway, aside from that, I absolutely love this game. I love the writing, I love the humorous writing style, I love the art style, and while it is only a short game, I think I did it in just over 11 hours. It's got so much replayability about it that I would not hesitate in recommending it. I'd love to. It's one that I will, whether I visit again on the channel, I don't know, but I'm certainly play it again, and I probably will play it again on the channel because I had great fun with it. But anyway, if you've played it, without putting any spoilers in the comments, let me know what you thought. Let me know how you got on with it. Let me know any interesting stories. Let me know if you had liaisons with Elizabeth, what happened without giving any spoilers. Same with Sidoti. What type of lasers did you have with Sidoti? And anyway, and just let me know what you thought of the game. But I would not hesitate in recommending it because it's a great game. I absolutely loved it. But anyway, let me know what you thought of the review. Is it too long? Is it too short? Because I don't normally do this type of things. I've got notes. I'm looking at notes on my screen, but I've completely ignored them. Anyway, let me know what you thought. Is it too long? Too short? Too much waffling? Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed me talking about it because I absolutely love playing the game. It's great. It's fantastic. Anyway, thanks very much, and I shall see you in the next one. All right then. Cheers. Bye.